Grid tonight. NASCAR suspended Connor Jones after an on-track incident sent Matt Mills to the hospital. Will the young driver learn from this moment? Pato O'Ward made a big splash last weekend at home in Mexico City. Are serious moves being made to bring an IndyCar race to Mexico? Bubba Wallace will have a new crew chief in 2025. Will the change make a difference? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Hello to you, and hello, Matt, and hello to everybody watching. So, after intentionally wrecking Matt Mills during last weekend's NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Homestead Miami Speedway, Connor Jones has received a one-race suspension. Now, during the Truck Series race at Homestead, Mills and Jones were racing for position when Jones got into the rear of Mills entering the corner, sending the number 42 truck up into the outside wall. Then, Mills' truck caught on fire and he got out under his own power. However, Mills was taken to the hospital and had to stay there for 2 nights due to smoke inhalation. Luckily, Mills has been cleared to compete this Friday night at Martinsville, while Jones will be watching from home. Now, initially, NASCAR responded to the on-track incident during the race by giving Jones a 2-lap penalty for rough driving. Many felt that wasn't severe enough, given he literally sent the driver to the hospital by wrecking him on purpose. After the incident occurred, Jones was heard on the radio saying that he had run-ins with Mills throughout the year and that he was tired of it, but he put out a statement later that day apologizing for his actions. We've seen NASCAR suspend drivers for rear right hooking another competitor, and now they've suspended Jones for intentionally wrecking someone at high speed 1.5-mile track. The photo courtesy there of Thor Sport Racing. Matt, did NASCAR make the right decision to suspend Connor Jones for one race? Might have an issue on Matt's side or one of my sides. There you go, Matt. Hello.
Yeah, second time that's done that. Apologise for that. So I'm not sure what's going on with the connection tonight. Yeah, well, interesting incident, wasn't it? I mean, this has been kind of, as it seems like, brewing for a while between these two. And yeah, I think the penalty is just. It was extremely needless from Jones, and for his competitor in Matt Mills to have had to spend 2 nights in the hospital because of something that was, you know, not his doing, it seems, and he was obviously in there with smoke inhalation and whatnot. Then the penalties just. Well, I think we'll talk more about penalties and their rankings later when we perhaps talk about Formula One. But yeah, this one I think the standard penalty, the standard NASCAR procedure was to have that 2-lap hold for Jones, but they've obviously taken a look at it over the last couple of days back at NASCAR HQ and have decided that he won't be taking the trip to Martinsville on Friday. But the good news is that Matt Mills is A-OK and will be racing on Friday. Ben says he was lucky he wasn't parked on the spot. Weak on-track move, weak statement, absolutely the right decision. I think everybody across the board, I think, is in agreement with Ben's sentiment there.
Yeah, with you on that one, because before this incident happened, Jones already had a negative reputation for questionable behavior, giving off the impression that he doesn't respect his competitors on the track or the work that goes into bringing these cars to the track each week. Last year, Jones was suspended for one race in the Cars Tour for violating his probation related to rough driving and actions detrimental to the series. He also threw water on Pinnacle Racing Group member after the ARCA race at the Milwaukee Mile. Now, long-time NASCAR veteran Kenny Wallace said he's tried having long discussions with Jones about rough driving, but it seems like that didn't break through. In his 21 Truck Series starts with Thor Sport Racing, Jones has yet to finish inside the top 10 and has an average finishing position of 23.7. Meanwhile, Luke Vanhouse as well has shared the same truck as Jones this year, with Vanhouse getting up 2 top 10s in his 3 starts. ThorSport hasn't officially announced Jones's replacement yet for Martinsville, but the entry list has updated and it's showing that Joey Sauter's name is on the list. Now, given Jones's history of rubbing others the wrong way, Matt, do you think the 18-year-old has a chance to change his ways and learn that sometimes your actions can have serious consequences, such as retaliation leading to a driver hospitalized? God, it sounds like we're talking about Max Verstappen.
More on that story later. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think this is, obviously there is something going on here with young Connor, because as you just documented, Josh, not the first time he's had a run-in with someone, or something has happened in the pit lane or whatever, as you just talked about. So there's obviously something going on. Maybe, he's a little bit frustrated, of course, with as you just said again, with his performances, not registered a top 10, while other guys in that same team with the same crew in the same truck have been performing better in less starts. If you think about the grid ranking, Luke Fenhouse would have a much better average score than Connor Jones, but that's something for another day. But yeah, there's obviously something going on here that needs looking at during the off season. ForSport are one of the premier teams in the Truck Series. They need to be having their guys in the top 10 regularly and competing for race wins. So it's a little bit of a shame that hasn't happened for Jones in some respects, but there's obviously something going on, perhaps, that needs to be addressed by the team, his close sort of support bubble, and that kind of thing going forward. But the moral of the story is that this isn't what racing's about, and it's not helped by the fact that the series likes to promote some of their stuff by having fights and other egregious happenings going on in their promotional material. Good evening, Adam. He says Connor Jones needs a wake-up call. Maybe this will be it regarding the one race suspension. Maybe it will. Maybe he'll come back at Phoenix and have a great run for the championship finale race in a couple of weeks' time. We'll see.
Hope so. End 2024 on a high and not a low, and prove that you've upgraded yourself as a driver and even as a human being. Now, on to our second story of the evening. During last weekend's Mexico City Grand Prix, Entity IndyCar Series driver Pato O'Ward participated in free practice 1 for McLaren. Now, he replaced Lando Norris for the session and finished 13th fastest, only 3/10 off of his teammate for the session, Oscar Piastri. In the build-up to the race weekend, O'Ward had publicly appearances scheduled, and a large number of fans showed up to see what the popular Mexican driver at home could do. Now, this comes as O'Ward ended the 2024 IndyCar season very outspoken about the lack of an IndyCar race in Mexico, which ignited the Pato Who movement and some rumors emerging in the media about a future IndyCar race in his home country. O'Ward described his FP1 outing as a fabulous day and called the crowd unbelievable. The photo taken by James Black from Penske Entertainment as well. Kobe's back with us. I'll start with you. How impressed were you by O'Ward's performance in FP1 compared to Piastri? And how stunning were the scenes of O'Ward and his fans as well showing up in the masses?
Well, I will say, Josh, I wasn't surprised at all by Pato O'Ward's performance in FP1, and we know it's no easy task to jump on a Formula One car for a one-off like this and just go out there and go fast, because he was in the session with drivers who have been in this car, every single race weekend throughout the year, and for him to do that, I know 13th may not seem like it's impressive to a lot of people, but being only 3/10 off of his teammate Oscar, thought it was pretty good. And I think if an opportunity came up and McLaren needed a driver to be a part of its F1 program in the driver lineup, I think Pato O'Ward absolutely has the talent to be an F1 driver if that's the path he chooses to take. I think he would if given the opportunity, but he seems very content right now being in the Entity IndyCar Series, and to come out, in front of his hometown crowd and put in a great performance like this. I even saw him waving to the crowd when he was driving around slowly around the racetrack, showing his appreciation for them. So I thought Pato did a really good job there. And in regards to the fans there, this is massive. I know in our private group chat, you guys saw me kept sending, these scenes of the fans. It was crazy. Pato had a scheduled appearance, and the fans, they were literally wrapped around the building. That's how long it was. They had Pato Mania or something. It was just quite remarkable to see how passionate the fans are in Mexico about Pato O'Ward. And it just goes to show, if IndyCar wants to bring a race to Mexico City, I'm sure those Pato O'Ward fans are absolutely gonna spend their money to come watch him race. He's just an absolute superstar in Mexico. I think they might love Pato just as much as they love Sergio Perez. It's just truly amazing to see the following that Pato has, not just in Mexico, but here in the United States and all over the world as well. I even see some photos of fans who live in Europe, wearing Pato O'Ward gear because they absolutely love the guy. He's IndyCar's most popular driver, and he's definitely one of the more popular drivers, in motorsports globally. So it was just really amazing to see how much the fans supported him last weekend in Mexico City.
Yeah, excellent for the Mexican fans to have him come down and B, go so well, especially when the Mexican driver that's full-time in this season didn't have such a great weekend. So great for them to have something to cheer for on Friday. Perhaps going into the weekend, Lando Norris was a bit, I'm going to lose my car for FP1. Please don't damage it, Pato, much like Ollie Behrman ended up damaging Charles Leclerc's, but it didn't really worry Lando in the end because, of course, he came through to get second in the race. So didn't make too much difference to Lando's overall weekend, which at this crunch point of the season, maybe taking these championship leading drivers out of their cars for free practice perhaps is not the best done thing, but great for McLaren to have him in. And if this was the Bernie era, Josh, you'll remember he'd be doing everything he could in his power to get Pato O'Ward on the grid full time in some shape or form, if it was with McLaren or another team next year, because there was a lot of rumblings going into the weekend and after it about the Mexican Grand Prix and its future if Sergio Perez is not around to be on the grid. If this was the Bernie time, then they wouldn't have too much worry because they've got young Pato O'Ward there waiting in the wings. So we know, as you said, we know how good he is in IndyCar, and we know, as Kobe said, how the big fan support that he's got from the American fans, especially, and of course the Mexicans supporting him. And if they can get IndyCar down there, which we talked about on the show before, especially with the NASCAR race going down there next summer, if they can get IndyCar down there as well in 26, which is the rumor that's now been obviously doing the round since the weekend, then that'll be a huge thing. Maybe we could see just a bigger crowd for an IndyCar race down there at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez as we did for the Grand Prix.
Yeah, Bernie would be, getting everybody round his bus as well and telling him, look, Zach, you're going to put him in one of your cars. Christian, you're going to take Oscar as well, because of all the rumors that's been going around as well over the past few days. Just to quickly touch up on that as well. I'm sure we'll get into that later on with Hots and Hots. Christian said today that he's unsure whether or not Checo will stay in that car full time for the rest of the season. Goes back to what I told you earlier on a couple of months ago after Singapore, was that I was told it wouldn't be the last we'll see of Danny Ricciardo. He's going to get that farewell tour at Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi and be in the car for the last 3 races. Well, Sao Paulo's this weekend. Checo's been underperforming like crazy. Danny Rick could still yet come in. So don't cross out anything yet. Red Bull are too unpredictable. But it was after the Mexico City race weekend that O'Ward appeared on the Formula E social media pages and said he'll see them in January. Don't worry, not driving, don't worry. He's followed up with a post saying IndyCar soon with the Mexican flag and fire emoji. Now, according to Dominic Wilde from Racer.com, O'Ward may be on the verge of doing demonstration laps in his Arrow McLaren IndyCar during Formula E's visit in Mexico City in January 2025 and get a taste of McLaren's Formula E car as well. This comes as momentum starts to build for a future IndyCar race at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez as well as early as 2026. The link to this article is in the video description below as well. Matt, starting with you on this one. We've been critical of IndyCar's marketing efforts many a time in the past. If all this does, if all this does materialize, is this a smart way to utilize its most popular driver?
Well, yes, absolutely, in his home country. And if the rumors are suggesting are true that we're going to get a Mexican IndyCar race in the next little while, you've got to use him. You've got to take him down there and go to the people and go, this is what we've got. This is what we're bringing to you. You've asked for it. Here we go. It's coming. I've not ever seen, now, apart from course cars perhaps, another racing car on a Formula E weekend which is not powered by electricity. So that would be a first as well, perhaps, to have an IndyCar doing demo laps and donuts and That will all happen. This is a joke. That will all happen, and then everybody will go to the exit before the Formula E race begins. I'm joking. Obviously, I'm joking. But that'll be interesting to see. Just that as a thing, because that's not been done before, as far as I know. To have a an engine powered car, if that makes sense, on the track on a Formula E weekend as an racing car, because we've had. Well, obviously Formula E, we had the iPace E trophy thing that went away before COVID as the Formula E support. We've not really seen anything else in terms of we've not really seen any Formula E support action as such, because it's that one thing, one day, practice, qualifying, and the race. Now obviously we're going to dual weekends more than often than not for next year, but interesting to see if that does come to pass. But if they announce that this race is happening between now and second weekend of January, when we get to Mexico for the race, then great, bring him out, send the car down there, do some laps, show it off, get the people excited. That's what we need to see.
Yeah, for sure. And let me say, just because you may see a Pato O'Ward in an IndyCar doing demo laps in Mexico City, that doesn't necessarily mean that an IndyCar race is going to materialize that. But I will admit it's a really good sign, because I think back to last year after the IndyCar season, you remember Junco's Hollinger race and took Agustin Canapino's IndyCar, and he did demo laps down in Argentina for this so-called off-season exhibition race that they wanted to do. But Canapino is gone from the NTT IndyCar series now, and it seems like that race that they wanted to run in Argentina is not going to happen at all now. So I guess we just need to be cautious with this story. I mean, but I do think it's really a good thing to see Formula E and IndyCar doing a crossover here. I know they only put out the little teaser, so this hasn't been confirmed yet. It's just based on what we've seen from Racer.com and other media outlets, other reporters out there who have sources, people who are in the know, who say that this is something that's going to be happening when Formula E goes in for the Mexico City Prix. That we're going to see Pato O'Ward get in the McLaren Formula E car, and we're going to see him in the Indy car doing demo laps. I think that's definitely going to get a lot of fans excited about the feature. And if we do get an IndyCar race in 2026 in Mexico City, that's going to be spectacular for the sport. And I think Pato O'Ward is going to play a huge role in making that event a success. I know the Mexican fans there in Mexico are going to be very excited. They're going to want to buy tickets. I'm sure some Americans are going to want to go into Mexico and attend that race as well. And people from across the pond, I think they would like to go there too. So I think a race in Mexico City would have enormous potential for IndyCar. It seems like it took them a minute, to get on this path, but I'm really happy that something good seems to be coming out of the Pato Who thing, when Pato was not happy with the comments that IndyCar CEO Mark Miles that said about him, because that was definitely quite a messy situation that happened towards the back end of the IndyCar season. But really nice to see something good coming out of that finally.
Yeah, let's hope it does happen, to be fair, because that Mexico circuit is absolutely fantastic. And I think I still don't like how it works in Formula One with the Foro Sol section. I think it could be tweaked. I don't think we need to go right through the middle. I think we can use the Formula E layout now. It should be better. But hey ho, we can dream. We just need some overtaking, really. And I think Sunday's Grand Prix was good. More on that in Hots and Knots later on as well. On to our third story then of the evening. 2311 Racing announced a crew chief change for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. Booty Barker will no longer serve as crew chief of Bubba Wallace's number 23 team, who will call his final race on the pit box next weekend at Phoenix. Barker will stay with 2311, but will move to a new role at Airspeed with the competition leadership team. He said in a statement, 2311 has been good to me, and I hope I have been as good for 2311. Loyalty is important to me, and I will continue to do all I can to help everyone here succeed in my new role. I was fortunate to be part of the 2311's inception, and I look forward to being part of the team's continued journey. That was from Booty Barker as well. Now, Charles Dennehy will become Wallace's new crew chief in 2025, who has been serving as Christian Ekes's crew chief in the Truck Series. Now, Dennehy said he's excited to work with Wallace next year, and he believes in the culture the team has built at Airspeed. Photo and graphic courtesy of 2311 Racing. Now, after seeing Tyler Reddick's number 45 team make the championship 4, while Bubba Wallace's number 23 team completely missed the playoffs, do you think this crew chief change was in fact very necessary?
Yes, I'm going to go with, for sure, they needed to mix something up with the 23 team. And after Reddick's, to use the word I used on commentary on Sunday, miraculous win late on at Homestead, it's much like Verstappen and Perez a little bit in Formula One. You've got one guy doing all the good stuff while the other guy's floundering. Not as much Wallace, of course, against Perez. More on that later. But this needed to happen. He's been doing okay in the last few weeks. He ran up front in the early stages at Homestead on Sunday, but then faded throughout the middle portion of the race. And that's kind of been a little bit of the story of the last couple of years for Wallace. He started the season slowly, it feels like, and then got better as sort of the middle, but it's been too late perhaps for him to point his way in to a playoff spot, and then had some good runs during the playoffs. But of course, being on the outside looking in, it doesn't really get picked up so much. So there's been problems and some real bad luck at times for that team. So just needed a little bit of a freshen up. And we talked about crew chiefs on the show last week with the Paul Wolf situation with Logano. They need someone to come in there in the 23 team and just streamline everything and make sure that Wallace gets himself into the playoffs, because that is a race winning and potentially championship winning organization in 10 days time. So they needed to freshen it up and go with a 2-driver run for the championship next season. Adam says Billy Barker is an outstanding crew chief. Lots of respect to him. Yeah, and he's been around the sport for a very, very long time in and out of the crew chief role with many teams over the last 10, 12 years, even more, more than that. So be a shame to lose him from the pit box. But for the 23 team in the 2311 stable, I feel like it should be hopefully a good move for them. And that crew chief, Eckes' crew chief, they've won 2 of the last 3 races in the truck series, going towards the playoffs for their championship race in a couple of weeks. So yeah, he knows what he's doing to get a race winning car together. Of course, big step up for him coming from the trucks to the Cup Series. Ben says in his 3 years prior with 2311, Wallace has either won a race after missing the playoffs or pointed his way in without winning a race, unless he wins at Martinsville or Phoenix. He'll have done neither this year. Something definitely has to change for 25, and that kind of goes back to my point a little bit from before, that he kind of starts slowly and builds through. This year it just hasn't happened for him, apart from a few sort of half races where he's been up the front or in contention.
If you've been paying attention to the news, then you are aware of the catastrophic flooding that has occurred throughout the country of Spain. First and foremost, we are thinking about everybody affected by this terrible situation. The photos and videos coming out of Spain are completely unbelievable. This now, it's of course, let's just get away. Motorsport has a complete backsetter here, but our job here at Grid is to talk about motorsport. So we're going to do that now. This could have an impact on next weekend's Formula E preseason test and MotoGP's season finale on November the 17th. To talk firstly about MotoGP, they put out a statement this morning saying the entire MotoGP community wants to send our support to all those affected by the flooding in Valencia. Our hearts go out to the victims and their loved ones. We're thinking of you all and everyone assisting in the recovery efforts. MotoGP is in contact with the circuit and local authorities to offer our support and assistance as we work together to recover as soon as possible. The Circuit Ricardo Tormo itself in Valencia, which is hosting the Formula E test and the MotoGP season, have said, in light of the situation that has developed overnight in Valencia, we are working closely with the local authorities and representatives of the Ricardo Tormo circuit in Valencia ahead of the scheduled FIA Formula E test next week. Our thoughts go out to those affected by the extreme weather conditions in Spain due to damage to the main access roads caused by a burst riverbank nearby. The circuit is currently inaccessible by vehicle. 4 members of the Formula E staff stayed at the circuit last night as a precaution, but are safe and able to transfer to and from the circuit by foot. Track conditions show no sign of damage, and we continue to assess garages and freight. Alternative access routes in and out of the circuit are currently being investigated. We are closely monitoring the situation and will provide further updates in due course. We are on standby to support our colleagues in Valencia as much as we can do in this difficult situation. That was from Formula E as well. Ricardo told me, of course, is the base for FIA Formula E. All their freight is there ready for the women's test and then the normal preseason test that is going to happen as well. Formula E, a massive go on social media saying, we're putting the women in the cars. We're putting female drivers right at the heart of our sport. You can come and watch them as well. My understanding is that at the moment, if the Valencia Grand Prix for MotoGP does go ahead, it will be behind closed doors and it will be run as quickly as possible, possibly just a 2-day event as well to minimize everything. The other alternative is that we run this weekend at Sepang as a double points event. So basically the entire weekend is normal, but the sprint race is worth double points and the Grand Prix on Sunday is worth double points because there is 50 on offer for the race and 20 on offer for the sprints still remaining across the 2 weekends. Whether or not that's going to happen, we don't know. Everybody's saying, oh, let's just go and race. It's completely different. Everybody's saying, let's organize another race. Let's go to Mazzano. Let's go to Jerez as well. Jerez got something on, and Jerez is now also flooded. Mazzano, that was replaced 3 months in advance from Kazakhstan as well, and India. It had plenty of notice. Trying to get a racetrack for 2 weeks is incredibly hard. The understanding is that we could see a race in Spain, but at another location because there are multiple circuits nearby that have the necessary grade 2. But if Valencia doesn't go ahead, also that means that the postseason test won't go ahead. That's going to have to be rescheduled, most likely to Sepang if the bikes will stay there as well. Big headache for MotoGP as well. Big headache for Formula E. This is their only preseason test in what is a very crucial year for them. Fast charging becomes available this year. The teams need all the data they can. They also need to run the race simulation, which is run as a demo Grand Prix on the final day of testing as well. So we'll bring you any up-to-date news as we can throughout the weekend. But that is motor racing. It is the least important thing right now. Our thoughts are with everybody affected out there in Jerez. And Matt, after seeing the awful scenes in Spain from this historic flooding event, do you anticipate, as I've said, any impacts? Do you think they'll happen? Let's rephrase that. Do we think that the Formula E and MotoGP is going to happen? And do you think they should happen?
Well, firstly, awful. Just, I mean, the last 48 hours or so, not even for the people of Valencia. And now that the weather has moved down towards Jerez, further down the coast, just terrible. Just looking at the latest on the BBC app, which I've got on my phone here, the death toll currently stands at 95. That was posted an hour or so ago, that story. So our thoughts with everybody that's been affected. The pictures are just something else. As someone said to me, a work colleague said to me this afternoon, it looks like a scene out of The Day After Tomorrow. There's just piles of cars on the motorway and in the streets in Valencia, just where they've been washed and left, where the water, pretty much a lot of it, is now run away back to where it should go. So drainage is good. Problem is they had 50 centimeters of rainfall in 8 hours. Just ridiculous. It's just crazy. Back to the sport though. We'll start with Formula E because they're obviously there first, if that makes sense. If we were going in calendar order, this could be big for them, really big, because as you said, Josh, the whole Formula E paddock lives basically. Obviously the teams have got the cars and stuff in their own bases and around Europe and the UK, but the Formula E stuff is all kept at the circuit, and that's why we have the test there. They used to be at Donington Park. That's now been moved to Spain for obvious reasons, better weather, although not in this case. And they can have the preseason test and then go straight to Brazil, which of course is 6 weeks away for the first race in Sao Paulo. So as you said, we're going to have the women's test, which they're making a huge thing of on social media. Every day we're getting new announcements of drivers coming to run in that for various teams. And then the main test as well. And if they can't run that at Valencia, then they'll have to scramble somewhere, perhaps, or go without, which would be a bit madness, especially for a couple of the new drivers coming in to the series for this upcoming season. So that's big, and we hope that doesn't happen, and we can get at least something, even if it's just a day, and they can do some running to get the cars on track. MotoGP, it's already early morning in Malaysia, so we could find out today in Malaysian time over the next few hours what's going to happen with MotoGP. If they do end up doing, as you suggested, Josh, from what you're kind of hearing, that we may end up perhaps going to double points this weekend for the penultimate race of the season, or the moving it. Now, Jerez was suggested. They've got the Lamborghini the Lamborghini World Final at Jerez on the date that MotoGP would be at Valencia in a couple of weeks' time. So that's out, and as you said, now that's being affected by the weather as well. So that was probably the first kind of, I know what we can do. We can just go to Jerez. Well, no, that's out. We've already been to Misano twice. Please don't go back to Misano. I don't want to see any more motorbikes going around Misano until next September, frankly, or when World Superbike goes there, because I'm kind of sick of the place for bikes for a little while. Where else could we go? It's got to be up to spec, hasn't it? As you said, Catalonia, perhaps Estoril, as you suggested. Portimao was also mentioned, but that's got an event on that same weekend if they're going to stick to the calendar, which I guess everybody would try to do so. And then, as you said again. Well, don't forget, Qatar was going to replace Kazakhstan, but then didn't because they didn't want to pay for it, which is why we ended up going to Misano for Misano 2. And there was a gap between the two Misano rounds because the weekend in between was already booked for something else and they couldn't move that. So this is why we always complain a little bit when we have too many races on schedules, because if they need to flex, to use an NFL term, they need to flex the schedule. It's tricky. So it is, I mean, Formula E, yes, that is big for them. But with MotoGP coming down to the crunch here, we could see the championship decided this weekend in whatever form now, because it could be decided on track, but then it also could be decided in with the championship points situation. So it's unlikely to happen if it's just a single points weekend this weekend, the way things are going. But if it ends up being double points, then and it obviously being the last round, then we will see a champion on Sunday.
I definitely think they need to decide before we start the weekend, though. MotoGP have been rubbish at doing it. Yeah, because
need to have it done today.
That's unfair on Bagnaia and Martin, because if this is now the last round of the championship, then Martin could win it on Saturday in the sprint race by getting 6th. He does it because the gap is at 22. Doesn't need to do any more. For Bagnaia, that's unfair because he's had 36 points taken away from him as a chance to win it. It doesn't make sense. And I don't like how it's not going to be discussed quick enough. It's like the riders need to know. We need to know. Everyone's expecting we're not going to Valencia. So what are you going to do in Sepang? There's another option, because if they want to keep the 6 sessions crucial, we have 1 practice session, 1 qualifying on a Friday. That becomes Friday. And then on Saturday, we run the sprint in the morning and a Grand Prix in the afternoon. And then Sunday, we run a sprint in the morning and Grand Prix in the afternoon as well, alongside the Moto 3 and Moto 2 races. So that's an option. Another option is
as well. Asian Talent Cup, that's schedule too.
Also, I think they need to consider here the fact that Sepang's got lights. So if we need to run longer into the weekend here, they can run longer. If we need to really extend the day out here, Sepang has lights. Let's do 1 race in the day, 1 race at night, and really confuse everybody. But they have options here. And I hate it's the fact it's the penultimate race of the weekend of the season, because it could become the finale. But how good is it? It's happened at Sepang, where the teams have got so much data from testing, so much race simulation data. They could literally flex the weekend and the teams won't care because they've got the data. So what do you think is going to be the likely outcome this weekend for MotoGP? Double points, double racing, or just single, that's it. This is now the final round. Good luck, Martin. You've been handed the championship.
Well, let's hope that it's fair, as you said. It would be unfair on Pecco for instance, even if he takes a good chunk of points out of Martin this weekend, and it's been kind of toing and froing, hasn't it, throughout this whole sort of Asian Southeast swing since we've left Misano, wasn't it? It was the last European round. So I guess Monday, Tuesday would have been travel day for everybody down from Thailand with all the freight and whatnot. They would have got to the circuit today for setup. So they're all doing all of that kind of business. And now Thursday, which is normally kind of press day and all that kind of thing, and track walks and all that jazz, they need to get all the bigwigs in a room today at Sepang and decide what they want to do. Because as you say, we need to have this done and underlined before practice one starts Friday morning. So we know where we stand. I mean, all the riders know where we stand. Luckily, to some degree, Moto 3 and Moto 2 have wrapped up, championships decided already. But it's the big one that's outstanding. So I would like to see if Valencia's off the table, and let's say
it looks like it.
Unlikely, very unlikely. And as you suggest, maybe they could do it behind closed doors and do it as a 2-day job. That would be if they, but like, what was it, Imola last year for the Formula One, that got cancelled because of the river that flooded the paddock a couple of days before. So I mean, that was a good move from Formula One to get out of there and not have any trouble. So this is MotoGP's turn to kind of deal with this situation. What I would like to see is a normal weekend this weekend, absolutely normal. Then you come back on Tuesday and we have a race in the week under lights for the final round on Thursday. Give the guys a Monday off, and then, or maybe even a Tuesday off, and do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday as a 3-day weekend. Friday morning we can all get up, us UK time, get up and watch a Grand Prix on a Friday morning, and it be the final round. Have it two separate, as you say. They've got time, and if they're not going to come back to Valencia, there's no need to rush, is there? They can, you know, Dorna can subsidise the teams and everybody to stay in the hotels for a few more days, and then we can have another race weekend at the end of the week, perhaps. But I think in 24 hours' time, if we were doing this show tomorrow, we'd know more where we stood. I think we're going to get some news within the next few hours. Once
I'm checking my phone, mate.
Yeah, I've had a quick look as well just to see if there was anything coming through, but yet nothing. So we'll know. We've done this before on a Wednesday where we've talked about stuff, and then on a Thursday it's happened almost immediately as if we've gone off the air, which is really annoying.
And we're an hour earlier tonight for us.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, indeed, an hour earlier in the UK than normal because of our clocks have already changed. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Adam is well up for a MotoGP season under the lights. They fitted those a couple of years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, for drones.
I think they've run it. Did they run one of the test sessions there once under the lights pre-season just to see what it would be like? Was last year, I feel like it was beginning of last year. So the riders would have had some thing on it. There you go. It's 6:15 in the morning in KL. So good morning to everybody in the MotoGP paddock. Hopefully in the next 6 to 10 hours, we'll know where we stand with this weekend and then with the Valencia weekend as well, because it'll be the way this MotoGP championship has been. It'd be a real shame if it was to end in a way that wasn't satisfactory in this. Yeah, we're going to probably have something happen on track, perhaps, but this is not the way we would like to see the championship finish. I
do quite like the idea of Malaysia being the season finale, though, but Valencia does pay big bucks for that honour, which is why everybody in the paddock, to be honest with you, to take this, obviously not, but this is something that has been said before. Everybody hated going to Valencia at the end of the year because it was freezing cold. So, and
it's being pushed further back in the calendar as well, with all these extra races being added. It's getting closer to Christmas, and of course next year we've got this Asian swing. Then we go to Portimao and then Valencia,
which is
the
really
end of next
weird.
calendar.
I don't get why they've done that, but I suppose it helps us out a little bit in the daytime.
I would like Estoril, to be honest. It's a new track, fairly for everybody.
Yeah.
They haven't been there since 2010, 11, something like that, maybe even before.
Only Marquez would have track data.
Because he won the 125 race from last.
Yeah.
I think that was the last year they were there.
2012,
so it's been a long time. World Superbike go there anyway, so as another Dorna sanctioned series. So if Estoril's free and they can, let's go to Estoril.
I'm up for that.
I like the idea of the night race at Sepang though as something extra different to finish the season off.
Well, we'll find out. I have actually messaged people in between, and I have now been told we will find out today. Tomorrow.
We
Yeah.
have to
So
know today.
I understand, however, that they have already been in the meeting rooms all night. So MotoGP are not lying down on this. They are really planning this out thoroughly. So we'll
with the
hear
time difference, I guess, as well. They would have been in touch with the people at the track and in the city and stuff like to see what the situation is. And if the main motorway into the racetrack has been damaged, then
you can't
that's
how you get into trucks in. Yeah, you can't get in.
Exactly. And the fans. To your point of it being a closed door event.
9 hours and 39 minutes. That is when we will expect it. So it's at 9 a.m. where we will have our press conference one. That's UK time. Track time in Malaysia at Kuala Lumpur. They've actually pushed this back. It's now at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. They've pushed that back considerable amount of hours as well. The podcast is apparently at 4. Gear Up's at 4:05. So they've pushed that back quite a lot, actually. So expect an announcement inside the next 10 hours. Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Spain right now as well. It really is horrific as well. And we love Spain. We go racing there so many times, and they are fantastic fans. And having been to Spain and experienced the atmosphere as well, they are absolutely loving and very kind and very opening as well. So we all wish as well for this horrible disaster the speediest of recoveries, and our thoughts are with everybody affected as well. We're going to hand over now to Matt for our latest from the Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Josh. And the Grid Endurance Performance Index was in Valencia at the weekend for the FIA Motorsport Games, which is a biannual event where we have countries represented and racing for medals. A bit like the Olympics, but with motorcars. Some say it could never be done. Hello, A1GP. But we did have action. There was rallying, go-karting, touring cars, some sim stuff, drifting, auto slalom, all sorts. But of course, in the Grid Endurance Performance Index, we're really interested in what's happening with the GT cars. Turkey won the gold medal in the GT sprint, thanks to Arçan Guven with a late move on Team Germany to get the victory in that race aboard his Porsche. The GT Cup races were the 2-driver races. James Cottingham and Chris Froggatt for Team GB won the first race on the road on Saturday, but were then penalised for a overtake off the racetrack, which led to Finn Weberhaus and Hubert Haupt getting the victory for Team Germany. But in the main race on Sunday for the medals, it was Team GB that came out on top with that duo of Cottingham and Froggatt getting Team GB's first gold medal at the Motorsport Games in its 3rd iteration. Kind of lucky that they got that all in before what's happened in Valencia over the weekend. So again, thoughts and prayers with everybody in the Valencia and Spain region. But that was what happened in the Endurance Performance Index this past weekend. Here is a look at the points. There is no change again for the 3rd week in a row, at the very least, in the top 10. But this weekend, it is the World Endurance Championship season finale, 8 hours in Bahrain on Saturday. Don't forget, it's a Saturday race to finish the season. And the top 2 in the championship share a car. Andre Lotterer and Lawrence Van Voort, along with Kevin Estre, who is there in 6th position in our points. They all share the number 6 Porsche, which is going for the championship this weekend. Toyota and Ferrari have been given a BOP break. What a surprise for the championship finale to see if they can catch the Porsches going into this weekend. So we could perhaps have our 2024 Grid Endurance Performance Index champion on the show next week. Although, as we talked about last week, Lawrence Van Voort is going to Macau for that GT World Cup race. Andre Lotterer is not. So that could be where we change the top spot in the 2024 Grid Endurance Performance Index. So there's that race at the weekend, WEC in Bahrain, and we have the penultimate race of the Super GT Championship there at Motegi on Sunday. So there are 2 races in the Grid EPI to look out for this week. There is the top 50 as it stands. Not too much shuffling around this week, of course, with not so much going on. And we have big points up for grabs this weekend, though, with WEC and Super GT in Japan. Results on those championships to be crowned as well. Tell you all about that in this very slot on the show next week for the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Now time to hand to Kobe. He's got more of this week's headlines from the motorsport world.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Justin Allgaier has signed a multi-year contract extension to stay with Junior Motorsports through the end of the 2026 NASCAR Xfinity Series season. His longtime primary sponsor, Brandt, will also return, appearing on Allgaier's number 7 Chevrolet for 20 races apiece each season, and will be an associate sponsor in the remaining races. Brandt is the second longest tenured partner at JRM, and they've been with Allgaier for well over a decade now, dating back to his pre-JRM days. Allgaier said Brandt has played an important part in his career, and he's honored to stay with the same team as he'll get to continue battling for wins and championships each year. Graphic courtesy of Junior Motorsports. Venturini Motorsports signed Marco Andretti to compete in next weekend's ARCA Menard Series West season finale at Phoenix Raceway. Andretti will drive the number 25 Toyota with sponsorship from Rich Mar Flores. In the last few years, Andretti has made select starts in stock car racing, competing in ARCA and Craftsman Truck Series races. Andretti said it's great to add another ARCA race to his schedule before the year ends, and he's grateful for the special scheme honoring the birth of his first child. Photo courtesy of Venturini Motorsports. And now some sad news in the world of short track racing. After 25 years of operation and rumors of this happening for years, Irwindale Speedway will officially close down and shut its doors permanently at the end of the 2024 racing season. Since the Southern California Short Track opened in 1999, they've hosted ARCA Menard Series West races, Demolition Derby, street legal drag racing, and Formula Drift events. On Saturday, December 21st, the track will be hosting one final event called Irwindale Speedway's Farewell Extravaganza. NASCAR driver Ryan Vargas said he's currently looking for sponsorship to run the late model race that night because he wants to be a part of the event's final ever race since that's his home track. With Irwindale shutting down, the track's assets and events will transition to Kevin Harvick's current raceway in Bakersfield, California. Tim Huddleston, president of Irwindale Speedway and Event Center Incorporated, said Irwindale is more than just a track. It's been a home and gathering place for racing enthusiasts worldwide, and thanked everyone for the last 25 years of racing in the city of Irwindale. Graphic courtesy of Irwindale Speedway. Team Penske engineer Miles Stanley will move over to alliance partner Wood Brothers Racing in 2025. Stanley will be Josh Berry's crew chief next season and leading the iconic number 21 team. He's currently serving as the performance engineering manager at Team Penske and has experience winning championships with Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. He also got some experience being a crew chief with Team Penske as Austin Cindric's crew chief during his part-time Cup Series campaign in 2022, plus an interim role with Blaney. Stanley said the Wood Brothers is synonymous with the sport of NASCAR, and he's excited about the opportunity to lead the team in its 25th season of competition. Graphic courtesy of Wood Brothers Racing. Chip Ganassi Racing confirmed its 2025 driver lineup in the NTT IndyCar Series in Indy next. In IndyCar, multi-time series champions Scott Dixon and Alex Palou will return to the numbers 9 and 10 Hondas respectively. The number 11 team is shutting down with Marcus Armstrong moving over to Meyershank Racing. The number 4 team will also shut down as Kiffin Simpson will slide over to the number 8 Honda to replace Linus Lundqvist, who becomes a free agent. And they'll also have Jonathan Brown and Niels Coolin driving for the team's new Indy Next program. Graphic courtesy of Chip Ganassi Racing. And that's the end of our news for the week. So I'm going to turn over to Matt for everyone's favorite game. Pick a winner.
Pick a winner with only 15 points still on the table for the 2024 Pick a Winner Championship. And we are going to do our best to try and pick the winner of the Interlagos Sprint Race for Formula 1 because it is another sprint weekend this weekend in Brazil. I am going to go with the hot hand and go with Ferrari because don't forget on last week's show I said, oh, they won't be any good in Mexico. And that turned out well, didn't it? I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc to win the sprint race on Saturday in Brazil. Kobe, who are you going with?
I think I'll go with Charles Leclerc to get the sprint race done in Brazil. Who you got, Josh?
Max Verstappen. He's won every sprint race this year so far. He is already the sprint champion. He's won 3 before we started. We've got 2 left. He won the last one, so he's won 4 out of the 6. Ergo, he's the sprint world champion of 2024. So he's already done 1. I think he could do the clean sweep, to be honest with you. So I'm sticking with Max Verstappen.
Josh has just reminded us in the chat, we better do MotoGP because we've just been talking about it. They're at Sepang, as we were talking about before. We better do their sprint race as well. Could all be different by the time the bikes are on track for the actual race, of course, in terms of the championship, as we were just discussing a little while ago. I'm going to use your rule of thumb, Josh, and continue with the king of the sprint, Jorge Martin, my pick for the MotoGP sprint race at Sepang.
And I'm actually going to go with a swing for the sprint race. I'm going to go with the other guy, Pecco Bagnaia, to get the job done in the Sepang sprint race. Before I turn to you, Josh, I'm going to read this comment from Ben regarding what my last story in the news segment. Choosing Kiffin Simpson over Linus Lundqvist is a choice. And yeah, Ben, in previous shows, we talked about the situation, how Linus Lundqvist, he brings a lot of funding to Chip Ganassi Racing. So there was always this chance that Chip Ganassi Racing was obviously going to side with the guy who's bringing significant backing over Linus Lundqvist, who's not. Well, we don't really know for sure how much backing he brought. Maybe brought a little, maybe hardly any backing, so to speak. But at the end of the day, still unfortunate for Linus Lundqvist with all these IndyCar seats running out. It doesn't look like Linus is going to be on the grid full time next season in IndyCar, which is such a shame for him because I thought he had some really good runs last season. And Kevin Simpson definitely has a lot to learn in year 2 in the NTT IndyCar Series and prove to everybody that he deserves to be alongside the likes of Scott Dixon and Alex Palou. So I'm sure he can go into 2025 with a mindset of proving everybody wrong. And Adam Lemery says that your pick for F1 sprint in Brazil, you say Max Verstappen, and then for MotoGP sprint, you're going with Jorge Martin. Okay, Josh, who you got for the sprint in MotoGP?
I don't think it's going to be Martin for one, because every time we come to a crunch point in the championship, he bins it. And Bagnaia sort of picks it up. So I think the sprint race will go Pecco Bagnaia. That's, of course, if the sprint stays as the sprint. It might change to Grand Prix 1 of Grand Prix 2. And it's, it's another option I've just thought of is let's have 2 Grand Prix. The Saturday is worth 37 points. The Sunday is worth 37 points. Completely change everything and make it so it counts for the sprint and the Grand Prix and have 2 races. That's another one. There you go. Gets rid of the sprints and just has 2 races. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll go with Pecco Bagnaia. We might have to redo that if we do go to having 2 races.
You can get your choices in on the social media. Use the hashtag Pick a Winner for, what have we got? Sprint races and Grand Prix in both Formula 1 and MotoGP this weekend, and NASCAR at Martinsville on Sunday, where we will decide who or of the 2, apart from Logano and Reddick, wrong way, are going to go after the trophy behind me for the 2024 NASCAR Championship at Phoenix next weekend. To use Ben's phrase, quickly before we go to Hots and Knots, the Chip Ganassi Racing Indy Next choices are a choice as well for Ganassi. You would have thought they would have had perhaps stronger name in at least one of those 2 cars for Indy Next season. Time for Hots and Knots then with myself and Josh. Much to discuss, I feel like, coming out of the weekend that was with Thailand, which I got to see all the races live this weekend, which just doesn't happen. With the clock change and kids getting up at 10 to 5, like 10 minutes before the Moto3 race started. Put the telly on. This is great news. Thailand, Mexico, and Homestead. What have we got then? What have you got for hot wise from this past week?
Let's start with one from a broadcasting point of view. Obviously, I'm still in recovery. I'm about 75% there. But I still cannot do an entire commentary on my own, which is what I usually do with Moto3 and Moto2. So Megan has been getting up. She did British Grand Prix because it was British Grand Prix. Then she did Japan because I was in a hotel room in London, and that's when the pain started. Ever since then, she's done Australia, she's done Thailand, she's done Indonesia. She's getting really sick of getting up early, but she's loving Moto3 and Moto2. So I think that's great that for someone who only did MotoGP to now see what the juniors are doing, that's great. And I think there needs to be more eyes on the juniors because they were fantastic. What a Moto3 race. What was about half the field were all lined up together. That was fantastic. But I think my top from the MotoGP weekend, shame for Martin, shame for Marc Marquez, that was a shame. But Ayagura, he's my MotoGP weekend hot because he threw it away in 2022 at Valencia, got on that dirt, put the front bike down. We were all like, no, you've thrown it, no. But to become only the 3rd Japanese rider and non-European rider to win a championship in Moto2 is unbelievable, and he thoroughly deserves it. Sergio Garcia's teammate at the start of the year was really good. We even thought that Jake Dixon could come in after his wins early on in the season. But I has just remained fantastic. and I can't remember what that tweet was. His hashtag, but it made me giggle.
Oh yes, GoldenEye.
Yeah. GoldenEye, that was it. I was like, that was brilliant. Whoever came up with that is fantastic. And of course, our own Julia does that for World Superbikes. She's the social media manager over there, and she came up with the top rack one as well, which I was I laughed at a lot. So yeah, they're really on point with the hashtags. But yeah, I go as my MotoGP heart.
Yeah, really good to see. The second world, what was it? The second world champion in Moto2. The first Japanese, it's coming, Ben. The second Japanese, sorry, let me get this right. The first Japanese world champion in the MotoGP paddock since 2009, can you believe, when Hiro Ayama won the last 250 world championship. So that was cool. There's so many more hots from... the Moto3 hotness was you line up 14 guys at the front of a Moto3 race, and then David Alonso wins. And then it just happens, and he did it again at the weekend. He just can't be stopped at the moment. It's just great.
Would I get red flags on Moto2? It's one of the two.
Yeah, the rain came, didn't it, at the end of Moto2, which cost us a shot. Perhaps Agura running down Canet for the win, but I don't think that was on the cards. Adam says hot Reddick last lap pass for the win at Homestead F1 at Mexico was good. The whole race, Adam, at Homestead was just brilliant. And Ben and Brandon went into this in detail on Encore on Monday night. Go back and check that out after we've finished here. Me and Matthew Owens on the USRN call, and then obviously simulcasting on JB Motorsports over the weekend again, were absolutely loving it. And Reddick's, to use my word I used on Sunday, has pulled off something miraculous in the last corner to go around the outside of Ryan Blaney. He was 0.6 of a second faster on the last lap than the other two guys. What? Great scenes. Michael Jordan having a car in the championship race is just going to be something, isn't it, for Reddick?
I think Reddick's going to do it, I've just got this feeling after seeing that. I've got that feeling we're going to have him do it.
He was a lot of people's favourite at the start of the season. A lot of people were talking about Reddick, a lot of people were talking about Bell, and obviously Larson Byron, the kind of Hendrick group. Martinsville could be, there's still, we said pre-race on Sunday where we were getting the build-up done, me and Mr. Owens, you've got Blaney, Chase, Elliott, Reddick and Hamlin. They're the four guys on the outside. They're a long way off in points. They all need to win. And they were the four guys that were up front pretty much the whole day. Just the way it worked out was sensational, and then at the end was just a great pure finish to that race with no overtimes and silliness going on.
I've missed all the great ones, I feel like, this year. I got Atlanta, but then and Daytona, actually, the second one.
In the summer. The last 2 weeks have been just off the scale with Logano and then Reddick on the last corner this week. So if we can get something again, even in that category. Next, this coming Sunday at Martinsville, and of course we've got Xfinity and trucks to decide their championship fours as well, Friday and Saturday night. So big weekend at the paperclip. Adam said F1 at Mexico is good.
Trashy.
We'll get to that in a moment. I watched it Monday night because obviously we're doing the Homestead race. By the time all the penalties and stuff had unwound, and then we were watching a battle for fifth between the two Mercedes cars, it was quite late on Monday, and I just felt myself.
It was dead. Yeah.
Just didn't. There was the second half of the race. First half, everything was going on. We had the crash at the beginning, and then the Lando and thing, and Perez doing Perez things. And then you just got a little bit.
I just remembered that I hand right before the Grand Prix and all the info. But it just got a bit boring.
It just got a bit drawn out, didn't it? That's the phrase I would use in the second half. That's the problem with a one-stop race.
Alonso, though, continuing his tradition of retiring from his 100th, 200th, 300th, and now his 400th Grand Prix. It's just every single time.
Mad stats that happens all of the time. Another quick hot for Mexico was the rookies. We talked about Pato O'Ward a little while ago. I thought they all did a fairly decent job, apart from Behrman, who got caught out with the Albon thing in practice one. But I think Felipe Drugovich is onto something when he says they should pull everyone out, not just for practice one, pull them all out for a weekend and give the rookies a go, just here and there. I think that would just added curiosity and entertainment. I mean, they'd all crash into each other, but
We've got that race coming next year, though, haven't we? In 26 for the end of the season.
Which should have been this week. There should have been this year, and now has been bumped. So that'll be cool. Let's turn the coin over the other way and talk about the Mexican Grand Prix, shall we not?
You go first, because we'll go talk about the same thing. No, you describe it, and I'll do the techie analysis bit as always, with my rules and stats.
First point of order was quick hop before we go on. Sainz's pass on Verstappen for the lead was absolutely tremendous, and the fact that he had the presence of mind to stay inside track limits as well at turn 2 when he was almost going out and turned back to the right into a left-hand corner to stay in was just really, really good stuff. First knot of the weekend from the Grand Prix was at the start. Why was there no penalty for that from Max? He just sent Carlos Sainz to the car park. He needed his hand stamped. To come back in. He was so far out. To use a Martin Brundle line. And then, of course, the thing happened again between our two championship combatants. He doesn't have to beat the red cars. He just doesn't. He doesn't care about Ferrari. Just let them get on with it. He just needs to hamper the McLaren. And I thought that both penalties were absolutely spot on this week. And if anything, the second one should have been more.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you there. Now, okay, do you want the tech analysis bit from me?
Go on.
Right. It was made very clear from the FIA that the rules are in 2 parts for if you're doing an overtake. If you're overtaking on the outside, if you are deemed to be off the track at any point and go ahead, you are gaining a long-term advantage, and it doesn't matter because the car on the inside, if he has made the apex first, he's entitled apparently to run you off the road. He doesn't need to give you space effectively at the exit because he was ahead at the apex. He's dictating where the car can go. So that's why last time out in America, Lando got the penalty. Max, even though Lando was ahead, because he was at overtake on the outside, Max had the inside line into the braking zone. He got the apex first because the way it was, sort of triangled in. And he forced him off. So, but this weekend, it was 2 different parts. The first part, Lando did go back round the outside into turn 4, but Max was Max was deemed the overtaker because he was having to go at Sainz, who had sort of stopped mid-corner. So he did, because he was deemed to be having an overtake on Sainz because he went to the inside. He forced Norris off the track. So that's why he got the penalty then. And he didn't get it back in Austin, was because the stewards deemed that he'd gone for the move on Sainz, who had stopped mid-corner, and he had to avoid. So that's why there was nothing there. But with Lando cutting the corner, it was deemed that he was forced off the track in force majeure by Verstappen, blocking him, giving no room, when he should have. Now, we rotate that because by the time we get to turn 8, it's changed because Lando is now the car ahead. So the rules state if you are overtaking on the inside line into a corner, you must give the other driver room and you can't force him off the circuit. And of course, Max did force him off the circuit. So it was a bit of a rage moment, but Max knows the rules. So in my opinion, if we're staying consistent, the first one at turn 4 shouldn't have been a penalty, but the one at turn 8 should have been a penalty. But that's not my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that America should have been a Max penalty, and these 2 correctly were a Max penalty. And the difference is the driver steward. Derek Warwick was in COTA. Johnny Herbert was in Mexico. And everybody's saying, oh, yeah, well, Johnny Herbert loves Lewis Hamilton. Johnny Herbert, he hates Max Verstappen and all that. No, Johnny Herbert is a very experienced driver who is more experienced than Derek Warwick, in my opinion. And Johnny knows the position on fair racing. Johnny has driven the modern cars because he did so in Sky F1. So he understands what they're capable of. Derek Warwick hasn't driven a car from the modern era. So it's equivalent of Johnny is more experienced in that regard. So he's reading the rules and applying them as it should be. The one thing I've got from all this, Matt, is where is this Geneva system from that should have been checking all this from the stewards. You know, after 2021,
Yes.
they said we're going to have VAR,
VAR.
and there'll be a computer and a guy back in Geneva at FIA HQ, and that will determine everything. Where is it? It's not.
That story came out that they were having that, and we've not heard of it since.
No.
3 years on.
Mohammed stood there on that podium looking like a Bond villain and said that they had flogged whatever his name was, Michael, whatever it was.
Massey.
And Michael Massey, that was it. And that they were having VAR. Where is it? It's all gone.
Yeah.
It's just, if I could change 3 things about Formula One: 1, permanent driver steward who was an ex-world champion from the modern era; 2, get rid of Mohammed Ben Sulayem; 3, get rid of Stefano Domenicali. That will solve Formula One's problems. 4, imprison Ross Brawn.
That was another of my to come knots, is the stewards.
Yeah.
We need to have a permanent stewarding team of 3 people, maybe 4, the same people at every race, because you can't be consistent when the person that was here last week is now watching at home, because there's a different thought process in people's minds of the incident that they're looking at.
And then when, drivers come to appeal and the teams appeal it, they have to get the guys from last week in on video call. There's no face-to-face conversation.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. And MotoGP have got a permanent steward. He's an idiot, but they've got a permanent steward.
We've only got him for 1, maybe 2 more weekends. Yes, indeed. Simon Crowfowl will bring.
I'm still recovering, but I'm so happy he's going.
So that's a former world champion. But Simon Crowfowl will bring some sense to the MotoGP stewarding position. He's
got a brain.
Well, indeed. And he's been on a bike fairly more recently than Freddie has. Yeah, there needs to be that needs doing. They need to do something with that for next year. Also, we had the McLaren appeal, didn't we, on the Thursday or Friday, whenever it was, to go back to COTA, and then it got thrown out. I don't know what evidence they thought they'd accrued, but whatever.
It was that rule thing that it was Max became the inside overtaker.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we had Christian on Sunday after the race. As I tweeted on Monday, here's a bloke that looks like he's doing loads of homework when all his mates are wanting him to come out and play, because he had all his paper all over the desk.
He looked like me.
But when he was asked about the incident, at turn 8, he had nothing to say. Strange that. Max being petulant throughout the race was just Max. When he's not winning, it's all going wrong and the world's ending. Talking of the world ending and a Red Bull thread to this, Sergio Perez, his home Grand Prix, gets knocked out in Q1, finished last, had a crash with Lawson, which Liam, fair enough. I thought that was great. Great stuff from Liam. Most of the damage to Perez's car came from him running over the back edge of the curb at turn 5.
And the finger down the straight.
Then Liam giving him the bird, which wasn't shown on the broadcast, but it's on Twitter. Then Liam having to apologise for giving him the bird, and Perez wasn't very happy. And then Sergio Perez's dad retired his own son on Instagram. Have you seen this?
No.
A picture of Perez with the flag and stuff from, I don't know, it was a long time ago picture. And first race was here. Last race was the Mexican Grand Prix. You've been an honour to watch, etc., etc. I think this was Monday. I saw this doing the rounds. So back to our conversation from a few weeks ago, before you were away, which is Perez is going to get to Mexico, maybe Brazil, and given the flick,
he's gone off to Brazil, and Danny's in.
And why wouldn't you want Danny Rick for Las Vegas?
Yeah,
because the Americans love Daniel. Have a few weeks at home, Daniel. Keep yourself fit, do some training, etc., etc.
Heal because he had an injury.
Yeah, true. And we'll see you in the desert at the beginning of November. So that could still happen. All the wranglings of Red Bull's driver lineup for next year is just fascinating now, because Lawson has come in and not just blown the doors off Tsunoda for the last couple of weeks, who had another shocker. Was it 3 races in a row at Mexico now for Yuki? He's not even got past the first corner, which is just terrible.
Oh, hang on, I've got my stats here. Hang on, I'll undo my notes. Tsunoda's best finish was 12th in 2023. He was out on lap 1 in 2021, and he was out on lap 51 in 2022. He's only finished once, and he's never scored a point. So that's 3 retirements out of 4 finishes.
I was wrong. Thanks, Scott Mitchell, for feeding me a wrong stat on the podcast. They're very good. So yeah, Lawson's blown away Tsunoda for the last couple of weeks. And they announced that Tsunoda's getting a run in the Red Bull at Abu Dhabi at the test. Now that probably going, well, just give him a run, just so that we say that we've done it. It's going to be Max and Liam, you feel. That if it isn't that, it should be next year. And then Yuki and perhaps Hajar, which is what I brought up when we talked about this last time in the summer. But then you've got this now talk of Colapinto coming to Red Bull, which is gathering momentum as well.
I don't think that's right, because Williams are going to want to keep him. But then again,
that's what James Bell said on the F1 podcast a few weeks ago when he was talked to by Tom Clarkson. They said, you've got your lineup sorted for next year, but now you've got this problem. And he was like, yeah, we want to keep him in the family, even if he goes somewhere else and can we come back again? That would be ideal, but he needs to be on the grid kind of thing. Well, there's nowhere for him to go unless he does end up at RB.
There's another option here, is the fact that Alexander Albon is still a Red Bull driver that's on loan to Williams. So if Williams then load out a driver to Red Bull, why wouldn't they just take their own drivers back? I'd much rather see. Yeah, I'd much rather see. I'd much rather see that, and then an Albon, Yuki Lawson, whatever lineup at RB. I'd rather see that. And then I think Albon, if anything, Albon deserves a shot at Red Bull again, because he got thrown in completely in the deep end. So yeah, I'd like to see that. To be fair, I
don't think I've got any knots from NASCAR, but I have a knot from Thailand MotoGP. Frankie Morbidelli.
Yeah,
he obliterated Fabio Quartararo on lap 6 or whatever it was of 22. Just rode through his front wheel and got a long lap penalty. He should have been parked.
Yeah,
it was the most ridiculous. Yeah, in a wet race that I've seen for a while. He just rode straight through Fabio's front wheel, and he sat there going, "What's going on?" It's just like, and then of course he served his long lap penalty and then got back to the same corner a couple of laps later and crashed himself. Well, maybe, but yeah, that was. And then just to give him a long lap penalty was poor. Oh, and talking of long lap penalties, Tony Arbolino and Zonta van der Gerberg in Moto 2 practice on Friday. The pit lane at Thailand comes in off the penultimate corner and runs down the straight. Arbolino had crashed through that corner, and in trying to get back on the bike and get back into the pit lane or carry on, he was hit from behind by Zonta, who had a complete brain fade moment and took him out. And the marshal that was standing trying to get Tony going almost broke Tony Arbolino's ankle. So Zonta should have been parked. Yeah, he's been hobbling around. So Zonta should have been parked for the weekend for that too, frankly, to use a NFL line from times immemorial. We're talking about practice. So that was poor from all concerned, but not as bad as Frankie Morbidelli, I thought.
One more not, and it's fans. That's what I'm going to go for. Fans. A lot of things I've seen. Yeah, fans. A lot of people on Twitter complaining, saying, "What do you mean there's a 2-week gap between Brazil and Las Vegas? That's outrageous. It should only be a week." We've just come off a bloody triple header across 3 of the Americas. And then we've got another triple header, which goes from Vegas to Qatar in a week and then to Abu Dhabi. Give the teams 2 weeks off. And it's like, no, we want racing over. We should, it's too long. It should just be a week gap. This is what happens when motorsport takes the NASCAR mentality. Because even those in NASCAR want breaks. I now speak from experience. But it's even, well, to be fair, I never get a week's break. Even I'm actually, do you know how long my off season is? About 2.5 weeks. That's how
Nice.
long my off season is. Before in January, it all kicks off with Autosport
Formula E.
International. Yeah, well, Formula E is actually on December the 8th, and then it's Autosport International. I'm going down the few days before because it's 9th to the 14th. So I'm going down, I think, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then on 13, 14, we're in Mexico for Formula E.
Right.
Then it's a 2-week break before we kick off for IMSA. And then February kicks off first weekend with NASCAR at Bowman Gray. Then we go Jules and Daytona. Then we go in for Daytona 500. Then it's NASCAR. So I do not get that long of a break, which I suppose it's good, but it terrifies me because the planning has already started for next year. As Matt, you all know, I've already said we're planning on doing Silverstone for European Le Mans.
Yeah, we'll have a grid team, perhaps, hopefully, fingers crossed, on the ground in the UK for the first time when the two of us get to Silverstone in September for the European Le Mans Series return to the UK, which is very exciting. Yeah, I know what you mean about schedules because I'm still watching stuff from July.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could get through this stuff or just before the Olympic break. Then there's a couple of weeks where I haven't got much I've got still to watch. And then I can catch up through this. If I can get done before Daytona 500, I'll be all right. It's not going to happen. Absolutely no way.
Too much.
But too much. There's just too much. And I stupidly decided to log all this stuff. And now I feel like I've just got to carry on. And it's just, oh dear.
You need a phone attached to you to go round places with it, like on the neck.
Well, yeah, like just here, like here, so I can walk and watch at the same time. And Ben says, "No, Josh." Ben's comment says, "No, Josh. We need 52 F1 races in 52 weeks. These are professionals. They choose their life. Deal with it." As me and Matthew said on Sunday after the Homestead race, put the cars in the truck, drive to Martinsville. Let's do the race now. That's what me and Matthew said last night on Sunday. So
I don't know. So there's some everyone experiences it. There's some days you want the racing just to go on and on and on, and then there's some days when you go, "That's enough, thank you." And everyone goes,
"Well, it's only because it's good at the moment, and the championship's on the line, and it's exciting in the stories." Last season, I backlogged about 5 Grand Prix and watched them over Christmas because
let me guess, Max Verstappen.
I think it was Coulter onwards. Just recorded them all and just watched them. But now it's like Grand Prix on. I'm away this weekend, and I had to make sure to check what time the sprint race was on Saturday. 2 o'clock in the afternoon UK time. Right, we're planning our Saturday around the sprint race on Saturday. So looking forward to watching that with some friends who we were texting, who I had messages from on Sunday during the Grand Prix and said something about, I went, "Yeah, Hamlin's doing really well," because I wasn't watching the Grand Prix. And I was watching stuff. I was like, "Yeah, Hamlin's having a good day so far." Yeah, it didn't register.
Well, it's just I think we're all ready for a break, and I think
first world problems, probably.
First world problems, yeah. We're complaining about not watching our favorite sport on a Sunday. It's so weird, but for us, it's our jobs, it's our hobbies, it's our lives, especially for me. So, maybe I shouldn't be moaning that I work about. What did we get out? What did we work it out? It's something like 46 weekends out of the year that's got motorsport event or something stupid along those lines, which is good.
Every day is race day.
What, sorry?
Every day is race day.
Every day is race day. And I've already been doing my homework for this weekend as well. So everything that gets stuck up in the box as well, I write them all down. I highlight them. I write stats. I page write as well. Kobe knows what it's like. He writes all these scripts as well. Joe the same for the pre-show. It's madness as well. So is that it for Hots and Knots? Because it'll link in perfectly with what I'm saying. Excellent. I'm fine. So taking a look at our upcoming schedule as well. Now you know how hard we have it here on Grid. Saturday, Grid Live pre-race. That is at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Martinsville. Monday, Grid Encore. That's going to be recapping the Trucks and Xfinity races at Martinsville as well. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach the 1,000 subscribers milestone. Now we're well on the way to 2,000 on that road as well. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications for when we go on the air, and you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to join these fine folk who keep us on the air as well. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue expanding our coverage. The link to all of that is in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and get your name on the board and invest as much as you want. And you can consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from Grid Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night to you all.